Blame yourself if I don't love you, okay?
The sister wives saga has taken a shocking turn, leaving fans stunned and emotionally shaken. The streets of Flagstaff are humming with gossip as it becomes public knowledge that Robin Brown, once Cody Brown's most beloved and protected wife, along with her children, has been ordered to leave the house they shared with him. This wasn't a mutual decision, nor a temporary arrangement. It was a direct response to years of emotional strain, favoritism, and the collapse of a family once held together by faith, love, and shared values. From the start, Robin's entrance into the Brown family introduced a different dynamic. Initially, her presence seemed to bring out a lighter, happier Cody. He was gentler around her, more engaged, and visibly more affectionate. At first, the other wives Mari, Janelle, and Christine chalked it up to the freshness of a new relationship. They expected the balance to eventually return. But as time passed, it became painfully clear. Robin wasn't just another wife. She was the wife. Cody began prioritizing her needs, spending most of his time in her home, buying her children expensive gifts, and leaving the other households to feel neglected and invisible. The cracks began to show publicly during the COVID-19 pandemic. Cody used health precautions as a justification to isolate with Robin, imposing strict visitation rules on the other wives and their children, rules that Robin's household didn't seem to follow. That moment proved to be a breaking point. Christine left first, no longer willing to be a footnote in her own marriage. Janelle followed soon after, choosing freedom over invisibility. Even Mary, the most loyal of all, finally admitted defeat and decided to move forward on her own terms. Despite all these departures, Cody remained oblivious to the root cause. He blamed Christine's independence, Janelle's willfulness, and even the media, society, and his children. He refused to acknowledge the one constant Robin. Her central position in his life became a wedge that drove his other relationships apart. Robin wasn't necessarily malicious, but her hold on Cody was total, and the impact on the rest of the family was undeniable. The children, especially the older ones like Garrison and Gabriel, voiced their feelings of abandonment. They saw their father morph into a stranger, one who seemed to care only about Robin's children. Even Dayton, Robin's own son, later admitted that the special treatment they received didn't sit right with him. The emotional toll was tremendous. Resentment, confusion, and sadness festered under the surface of a family that had once prided itself on unity. Then came the financial collapse. Maintaining multiple households had always been a strain, but Robin's lavish lifestyle pushed it over the edge. Her home was spacious, designer decorated, and her children attended private schools. When Cody could no longer juggle the bills, Robin suggested selling the other wives' homes to keep hers. That suggestion, leaked by one of the older kids, was the final nail in the coffin. Cody finally broke down during a heated family meeting at Coyote Pass. With all wives and many of the children present, he admitted his mistakes. "I allowed this family to crumble. I let my love for Robin cloud everything," he said. Christine, never one to hold back, told him plainly, "You let her destroy us." Then came the moment no one expected. Cody turned to Robin and told her that she and her kids needed to leave. Robin was shocked, devastated, and silent. But the decision was firm. The following days were filled with chaos. Paparazzi captured moving vans and tearful goodbyes. Robin's children were bewildered, unable to understand how the woman who had once seemed to be the family's pillar was now being removed from its center. Meanwhile, Cody tried to make amends. He visited Janelle, helped her with home repairs, had a heart-to-heart lunch with Mary, and even apologized to Christine's new husband, David Woolley. For a while, Robin said nothing. Then, in a tearful interview, she claimed she had never tried to divide the family. "I just wanted my kids to feel safe and loved," she sobbed. But for many, the damage was irreparable. Her words felt hollow, too. Little too late. Cody, finally seeing the pain he had caused, began to change. He focused on being present for all his children and started going to therapy with his former wives. He also began small family gatherings at a newly constructed community center on Coyote Plaza, humble space meant to rebuild broken bonds. However, just when the dust began to settle, another storm erupted. Brana, Robin's teenage daughter, found herself in the center of an online firestorm. A scene from the new season of Sister Wives showed her sobbing at a family meeting, begging others to stop being mean to her mother. The clip went viral and the internet was ruthless. Memes, harsh tweets, and cruel nicknames flooded social media. While some defended Brana, pointing out she was just a child raised in a toxic environment, others mocked her as an emotional manipulator like her mother. Robin was devastated. She begged the public to leave her children out of it. Cody, 4, once stood firmly by his daughter, publicly declaring that Brana had more heart than her critics ever would. But the criticism didn't stop. The emotional weight on Brana grew heavier, and even within the family, opinions were split. Christine expressed sympathy, saying no child deserved to be caught in adult drama. Janelle, however, criticized the way Robin had raised her children to equate tears with problem-solving. A family meeting was called again. Through tears, expressed her truth. "I cry because I care," she said. Her sincerity caught everyone off guard. That moment marked a turning point. Robin and Cody agreed to seek counseling for Brana and began teaching her healthier emotional coping skills. Brana later created a private Instagram where she shared poems and reflections. One post read, "Maybe I cried too much. Maybe others don't cry enough. At least my heart works." Slowly, public perception began to shift. While not everyone became sympathetic, many recognized that Brana was a child navigating an impossible situation. She was not the villain. She was another casualty of adult mistakes. Even her critics began acknowledging her emotional maturity. The Brown family, fractured and healing, continues its long road to recovery. Cody, now living in a modest apartment and working odd jobs, has embraced humility. He shows up for his kids. He listens. He no longer plays favorites. Janelle and Mary maintain cordial relationships with him, not as romantic partners.
There's a divine aspect about my relationship with Robin, and we have been bitch slapped for it.
But
I'm sick of it.
I know, but
I like walking around with
Friends and old friends. Christine and David remain happily married, but make room for Cody in family events for the kids' sake. Even Robin, though still distant, occasionally joins for the children's benefit. In the end, the Sister Wives story is not just about polygamy or reality TV drama. It's about human fallibility, forgiveness, and growth. It's about a man who lost everything but gained the self-awareness to begin again. And it's about a girl who cried not because she was weak, but because she loved deeply. Maybe that's what this family and so many others needed all along. After the dust settled and the final moving truck pulled away from Coyote Pass, silence replaced the chaos. Robin Brown, once considered the heart of Cody's world, stood in unfamiliar solitude. The house she had once called a haven now felt like a prison of echoes, her children quieter, their routines disrupted, their spirits unsure. For the first time in years, Robin faced the consequences of a family dynamic she had long benefited from, but had never fully taken responsibility for. She wasn't just Cody's favorite anymore, she was the outsider. Robin retreated into herself, spending long hours in prayer and journaling. Friends close to her described her as shell-shocked, not just by Cody's decision to ask her to leave, but by the brutal public perception that followed. In online forums and fan pages, she was painted as the villain, the woman who dismantled a plural marriage and tried to stand above the rest. But now, without Cody's daily presence or support, Robin had to confront the version of herself she had either ignored or denied for years. She began therapy reluctantly at first, but when the therapist asked her to describe her identity without Cody, she broke down. Robin realized she had spent over a decade centering her entire self-worth around a man who no longer made her a priority. For years, she had fought for his attention, accepted his protection. and justified every fracture in the family as something she hadn't caused. But now, isolated and emotionally raw, Robin started seeing the patterns. She had wielded her tears as tools, her fragility as armor. And while she may not have set out to divide, she had certainly never bridged the gaps either. Meanwhile, Cody was undergoing his own reckoning. Living in a modest apartment on the edge of Flagstaff, far from the chaos of polygamous living, he found himself alone in a way he hadn't experienced since his youth. The silence was brutal. There were no children running through the hallways, no multiple schedules to juggle, no daily drama to distract him, just him, his thoughts, and his regrets. He began visiting a local men's support group, initially as a way to vent, but those sessions turned into revelations. In front of strangers, he admitted that he had lost his way. "I thought being a good husband meant choosing one over many, but all I did was choose poorly and hurt everyone." The other men, many divorced or estranged from family, nodded with the understanding only fellow broken fathers could offer. Cody started reading books on emotional accountability, family systems, and even grief. He made lists of people he needed to apologize to, of habits he needed to break, of memories he had buried too deep. And when he wasn't doing the emotional labor, he was doing actual labor odd jobs. Handyman work, helping elderly neighbors with yard work. People in the Flagstaff community began seeing a different Cody. Less arrogant, more humble, less defensive, more reflective. But the journey wasn't linear. He still had outbursts, moments of self-pity, and nights where he scrolled through old photos of the family he once held together, his eyes watering with both guilt and longing. Sometimes he would call Janelle just to hear someone familiar, and she would talk to him not as a wife, but as someone who knew him when he was still trying to be everyone's husband. Robin's path wasn't linear either. She found herself struggling to discipline her children now that they were noticing inconsistencies in her parenting. Brana, once her emotional twin, began pulling away, spending more time writing, sketching, and reading. She told Robin one day, "You always said crying helped, but it didn't change anything." That moment struck Robin like lightning. Her daughter was no longer a little girl who echoed her pain. She was becoming a young woman who questioned it. The biggest shift for Robin came when she was invited to a women's retreat by a friend from her church. It was there, surrounded by women from all walks of life, single, married, widowed, divorced, that Robin began to rediscover her voice. She spoke about her experiences, not as Cody's wife, not as a sister wife, but as a woman trying to find her place again. The other women didn't pity her. They listened, challenged her, and encouraged her to stand on her own. She left that retreat with a new journal and a new mantra: "I am more than the wife I used to be." Back in Flagstaff, Robin started working part-time at a local nonprofit focused on helping women transition out of abusive or controlling relationships. While her situation hadn't involved direct abuse, she recognized the patterns of emotional dependence and the loss of self that many women described. She became a mentor, not perfect, not healed, but honest. Meanwhile, Cody was finding peace in small victories. Attending his son Gabriel's college graduation, fixing a broken fence for Mary's rental property, taking Truly, Christine's daughter, out for a quiet ice cream without cameras or fanfare. He stopped trying to be the Cody everyone remembered, and focused on becoming a man his children could respect again. The Sister Wives producers approached both Robin and Cody separately about filming a special Life After Polygamy. Robin declined. Cody agreed, but only if it centered on family healing rather than sensationalism. The network was reluctant, but eventually agreed to produce a limited docuseries. In the show, Cody spoke openly about his mistakes. He visited a family counselor on camera. He read letters from his kids. He admitted his failures as a father and as a man of faith. For the first time, viewers didn't see Cody defending himself. They saw him owning his downfall. As the series aired, public sentiment began to shift. Cody was no longer seen solely as the villain, but as a cautionary tale, a man who let pride and favoritism destroy what could have been a legacy. Robin remained mostly out of the spotlight, but her occasional public statements reflected a quieter, wiser woman. She thanked viewers for the grace extended to Brana, and for understanding that her children were never meant to be pawns in adult conflict. The most surprising reunion came nearly a year later at a birthday celebration for one of the grandkids. All wives were present: Christine with David, Janelle with her kids, Mary with a calm, confident presence, and Robin quietly sitting beside Brana. Cody gave a speech not as a patriarch, but as a man learning to be human again. He said, "Family isn't about control. It's about accountability. And if you're lucky, it's about